think so, but.
So I guess we'll need both of you guys.
Oh,
I mean, for
come
five.
in the way, there's a couple. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute.
Need one,
Was he
Jack?
there? You don't have a microphone.
Pat, the camera's going?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
This part's cut off.
I would expect
I'm
more
moving
of a
over there, that's why it's nice.
Yeah. Okay, the time being 6:30, we'll convene tonight's October 4th public hearing of the Housing Standards Board. I wrote up a little statement, but it looks like we have one member of the public, but I'll go ahead and read it anyway. Just to give everyone some background, at the March 2016 town meeting, the citizens of Tilton passed a warrant article creating a Tilton Housing Standards Board, whose charge has been to review and amend, if necessary, the proposed Tilton Housing Standards Ordinance, hold a minimum of 2 properly noticed public hearings, and have a warrant article ready by February 1st, 2017, the deadline for the town meeting. I'd like to, well, I guess I was going to introduce board members, but with just Jane in the audience, I think she's attended some of our meetings, and we can skip that formality, I suppose. I will note that we do have, sorry?
That's an objection.
We do have 2 regular members absent, so Heath Gaynor and Nancy Trousdale are sitting in to give us a 7-member board. Following several months of research, deliberation, drafting, and revising, this board has developed a draft housing standards ordinance, and we convene tonight to conduct our first public hearing, where anyone who wishes will be given an opportunity to provide comment. Following tonight's public hearing, the board will consider comments received, accordingly make any necessary changes, and will then follow with at least one additional public hearing before presenting a final recommendation to the town. I was going to propose some ground rules, make a motion with some ground rules prior to opening the hearing. I don't think we have to be particularly tight on some of these given our turnout, but I guess I'll go through them so that we can, so if folks agree with them, maybe we can use those for our next public hearing.
There is one person that I know is coming.
Okay, all right. So I'll read these. This is my motion here. I'd be seeking a second for some ground rules. 1, all attendees wishing to speak shall sign in on the sheet provided at the front of the room. The chairman, me, shall use the sign-in sheet to call on speakers in the order they sign in. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to provide initial comments. If responses are made by others, the original speaker will be given time to respond, not in excess of 5 additional minutes. During their allotted time, speakers may direct questions to the chairman, who may call on other board members to respond. Board responses will not count towards speaking time. Obviously, no obscene, disorderly, or rude behavior will be tolerated. And the last part of my motion would be, upon request, accommodations will be provided to anyone who so requires them in order to participate.
Second.
Second by
Constantine.
Any comment? Okay, so, all right, we can take that up after the motion, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries, and Ms. Swancott is here, so Mr. Gaynor volunteered to step aside, so we still have the 7-member board, and we'll go with that. So, I guess we're ready to get started. Do we have anyone signed in to comment? As I had mentioned earlier, folks who just showed up, if you'd like to comment please sign in here, anyone wish, and we will call folks up. So, if not, if we don't have any, well, why don't I give folks a second to decide whether they want to comment. Copies of the ordinance are up at that table if needed.
You did say you're going through this. Are you not going through this?
Well, would you, I guess the thought would be to, it's been available. The thought would be that sure, yeah, no, my thought would be to allow people to comment on whatever part they wish.
And I did
Yeah,
sign.
okay, thank you. Ms. Alden?
Jane Alden. My only comment is that I think it's very weighted towards the landlord as opposed to the tenant. And that's a concern to me. I didn't think that was a charge of town meeting. However, I didn't have an opportunity to read the notice of town meeting to verify that.
Could, would you like to provide some examples, or is it more a general?
Well, it's more general, but I think if you read through everything, it's the landlord, the landlord, the landlord. And I think that there should be some statements that protect tenants more. I also have a concern about the temperature portion. I think there might be some caps on both the amount of heat in the summertime as well as the temperature in the winter. I believe it speaks of 65 degrees Fahrenheit. I think heat can be just as deadly, and unless there's some provision, and I know there's some work being done at the state level for that.
So you believe the landlord should provide the tenant with air conditioning?
I believe the landlord should provide the tenant with an environment that doesn't get up to 90 to 100 degrees. That can be handled any way the landlord sees fit. It could be with assistant, with fans, ventilation, probably with ventilation.
Will they have windows?
Yeah.
But if it's 95 degrees outside,
Well, I don't think people should have to live in 100-degree temperatures. I'm thinking particularly in terms of the elderly and issues that we've had in some of the apartments in the town.
Medically necessitated.
Exactly.
People with medical issues not having
People with
windows,
respiratory
not having
issues in particular.
respiratory, not having the availability for window air conditioning to be placed in the apartment, no means for air conditioning to be put into an apartment, and that's what Jane's getting at.
Not adequate electrical outlets for cooling if it's necessary.
So that even if the apartment, I'm sorry, Gary.
No, go ahead, thank you. No, no.
Even if the tenant had the means to acquire air conditioning, there would be no means for it to be set up in the apartment. And that's what Jane's going after.
so the in-room, the ones that just sit in the room and vent out the window.
That's fine. But there's some that don't, that aren't, that won't work.
I think
If you only have one way to get out of the apartment, and it has to be vented out the window, that's a violation of fire code,
Well,
is it not?
I think the new technology with the air conditioners that I'm talking about only require it's a hose about this big, like a dryer hose. And
I'm not
most people,
specifying the kind of air conditioning, I'm specifying the internal temperature. And I'm just issuing that as my one of my comments and something where I feel is lacking.
So-
Not to get to a conversation
No,
about
I'm
air
just-
conditioning.
Not so much about air conditioning, but I just looked at like, there are lots of options out there for. I think there's a lot of different options available to make these, to
I
make
don't-
those
I don't
accommodations.
understand-
The
that's not
tenant
saying
could
that,
make
Nancy.
these accommodations.
That's
There
not
are
what I'm saying.
comments,
The electrical has to be in code anyways.
Right.
So
And
that's kind of a.
but that's not
it's-
right.
Right,
You have to
so-
look at it in the terms of having electrical code, and then you also have to have a window in order to put a vented air condition, whether it be a floor air conditioner or not.
As
And you
well
have
as-
to have that, and there are some apartments in the town of Tilton that do not have that currently.
That's addressed elsewhere in this.
The window,
The
right.
windows and then also the electrical subject code.
I think what you're talking about is to have a second means to get out of the apartment and not have it blocked by the air conditioner
Exactly.
hose.
I think that's up to the tenant to choose what they use. Right.
Not up to
But
the
no,
tenant,
it's
it's
not
up
up
to
to the
the
tenant.
No,
The
it's
fire
second
code.
access, that's up to the
No, I mean, it's
landlord.
up to the tenant to provide their own air conditioning. So
They
if
can't
they're,
block their egress.
no, I know, but then they'd have to do a different option of getting a floor one with a little hose that goes out the window, not the big air conditioner that goes in the window. But that's the tenant's options, that's their choices that they make for themselves.
It's the tenant's option is whether they have an air conditioner or not. It's not a tenant's option if they're in a small apartment with very tiny windows and one door, whether or not the temperature in that room reaches a certain point. That's not an option for the tenant.
So just for clarification, a window unit, you took out an air conditioner and put it into the window, that's complete obstruction. So that would be obstructing the way in and out of that. We do allow for the floor model with the ventilated because that's just a piece of plastic, so it's a little bit easier to deal with. It's not potentially screwed into the window or anything like that. So we do allow that, but the window units, if you only have that one window and there's a window unit in there, and it's obstructing that second way out, I think that's an issue.
So it would be okay by the fire department normal standards of looking at the apartment and going over it to have the kind on the floor with the vent going out that's smaller. Because it is easily removed.
So if the ordinance required adequate, I guess, electrical connections and, I guess, other provisions so that the tenant could provide his or her own cooling machine, that you feel that would satisfy your particular concerns? Okay. All right.
Is there anything covered under the building codes?
Potentially, we should look at it. And then I guess we should probably talk as a board about, even if it is covered under electrical codes, whether it's one of those things that we feel deserves extra mention and makes it into the ordinance.
I just would not want to construe that the landlord's going to provide air conditioning for
Right,
tenants.
Right.
Right.
okay.
Just the means for them to make their own choices.
Okay.
She'd also mentioned the minimum of 65 degrees. We pulled that from some other source, didn't we?
I think,
It's the
Yeah.
state.
I
state
believe we
minimum
just,
standards.
yeah, the determination, I believe, was not to put the number in the ordinance, and I think it was partly, we knew that it was covered in the state, in other statutes, but also that there was some maybe contradiction between a HUD document and a New Hampshire state law, and we just felt it was better to allow the existing regulatory frameworks to operate.
For the HUD was kind of just for if you were applying for section 8, it is 868, but we weren't going by the HUD.
There is pending legislation to address both extremes of temperature.
Okay, all right. So I guess I'll make a general comment that a lot of what this board sort of toiled with was deciding how much of this program is largely administered through regulations that already exist in through health codes, fire codes, building codes. And a lot of what the board worked on was deciding how much of those codes to bring into this ordinance and not make it too weighty, but also not leave it too vague. So that's one of the that's kind of an example where the board decided not to put that actual number in. Ms. Alden, did you have any other comments? All right, thank you. Sir, yes.
Yeah,
Can we get you to sign in?
I do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You just mentioned that this ordinance was drawn from various codes and statutes that are already in existence. It does rather raise a question, why does the town need an ordinance to reiterate what's already in existence? I don't see how any of this is going to benefit the taxpayers of the town. It seems like it's going to be an added cost and of minimal benefit to the residents. It doesn't generate revenue and it adds cost to the taxpayer. If most of this stuff's already addressed, why are we going through it all again on a town level? Like you said, most of it's addressed either through HUD or through housing standards or fire codes or electrical codes. It seems, well, you know, like I said, I'm puzzled as to why we think we need to revisit it.
Well, I guess I'll certainly invite other board members to comment, but I'll just start by indicating that it is believed to be a program that benefits pretty much all involved parties by creating a sort of like understanding of how inspections of rental property will be conducted. And it sets a time frame, and it provides both the owner, the tenant, the inspectors with sort of a roadmap for the administration of the program.
Has it been a problem to date when they're, are we trying to fix something that is broken or?
Sure.
Basically gives the select board their selected agents to go in and make random inspections. They can't do that now. They can only go in when they're invited or if they get a court order. So if there's a problem, they can go, if they get a complaint from a tenant, they can go in because the tenant invites them. If the tenant does not invite them in, they cannot go in without a court order. And the landlords cannot let them in without a court order. I mean, they can't let them in without tenant approval. So this gives the town the authority to make inspections.
If the tenant doesn't want them in, surely that's their decision.
This overrides that.
But why do we need to override the rights of an individual?
Well, I know both Pat and Tim, you raised your hands to talk just before Lisa started.
Part of the issue is that we have had in the past years, particularly during the time that I've spent as a selectman, we've had issues that have been raised throughout the town of Tilton that we have less than habitable accommodations for tenants. And when I say less than habitable, probably Tim could go into a little bit further detail on that, but not for human livable conditions. And that brought to mind how we correct the problems, and we have to go to various different ways in order to correct different issues. And having an ordinance brings it all together into one, and then we can correct that. This is not for the everyday individual landlord that comes in, updates and renovates and keeps the tenant for years and years and years. These are the people that
I understand. You're talking about someone that's living
go
in.
right to the extremes and not have bathrooms or facilities for people to live in, and then they conduct you know, a family that are supposed to be living in these conditions. And these are the things that we want to correct.
Okay.
And in order for us to do that, we need to have the authority in which to do that, along with assistance from the fire.
Okay. But again, why do we have the routine inspections then? If it's just a very few places that require pretty much emergency entrance to sort out the squalor in which they're living, why are we then going on and having a routine, pretty much routine inspections on all rental places?
Yeah.
My point was, right now we do have inspection programs in place that the fire department does, the health officer, the building inspector. But we're all going out at different times. So it's very difficult for a property owner or a tenant to organize their schedule 3 different times. One of the benefits of this proposal is that it'll be streamlined. So we can all go at the same time. So there's an inconvenience only one time to the property owner. There's inconvenience only one time to the tenant. Right now, we kind of are on our own islands doing our own thing. We're trying to get better at it, but if this is in place, we're definitely streamlining that so there's more consistency and hopefully less inconvenience to those individuals.
Do you need legislation to better streamline the schedules?
I didn't know the question.
Do we need legislation to better streamline our schedules? As far as the fire department goes, we're not part of the town of Tilton. We're the Tilton Northfield Fire District, so we're our own entity. So technically, we're not under the umbrella of the town of Tilton. By doing this, this will get us involved more closely with the building and the health of those inspections.
Do we need another piece of legislation to achieve that?
Perhaps, I guess my thought would be perhaps not. Perhaps everything or much of what's in this ordinance could be carried out without the ordinance. However, I guess I can't say with certainty that all of it, but also to start doing what's written in this ordinance without creating this public document would seemingly leave a lot of people in the dark. It wouldn't make clear how the program functions. It seems to serve as a disadvantage to tenants and landlords.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. I mean, it's a sort of noble endeavour, but my concern is that we're generating more legislation, which then means that someone has to administer it. And then if there's violations, then the town has to go to the trouble of either seeing them corrected or prosecuting the offenders. And it just seems like more added expense and trouble for a town that at the moment can't even fix its roads.
To me, it seems like an organization, creating efficiencies that would actually potentially free up resources over time.
May I speak on that as well?
Thank you.
I think it does a lot free up some of the resources, because you often have a health officer that will receive a call and go out to a call and to a tenant receive a complaint, whatever the complaint is, and they'll go out to that complaint, and then the health officer will then come back and follow up on that complaint. It may be an out-of-state land. Now they've got to track down out-of-state land. And then it may take a day, it may take 2 days, it may take a couple hours. And then they need also, when they were over there may have been another problem that they need to get in touch with the fire. Now they've got to coordinate with the fire department now they have to get their schedules together. Now, perhaps maybe the fire department can meet on one day and then the health officer on another day. Now the absentee landlord coming from Massachusetts needs to come up 2 days instead of the 1 day. And now they come up, now they know what the problems are. They can fix all of the problems because now they have a list or what is potentially needs to be fixed right then and there. And then in the future, you might want to take care of this. Now they have the opportunity to fix that right then and there. And a lot of the absentee landlords would want to know the ones we've dealt with, are gracious enough to say, I'd like to take one trip up rather than several trips. We recently had a case where they were up almost every other day for a lot of weeks because of the conditions that both the fire and the health officer had to go through. And it was a long process. And it, having this once a year or once every 3 years somewhat could prevent some of this.
Yeah, but there's a lot can go wrong in between the 3 years between one inspection and another. You can, I've seen tenants do outrageous things in no time at all. So you're still going to have situations where the place becomes uninhabitable between inspections. Like I said, my big concern is that we're sort of dumping more legislation on top of existing legislation, and we're accepting it on the town level rather than just exporting the ordinances. The town's assuming a whole bunch of new responsibility here, and the expenses and trouble that goes along with it. I guess that's pretty much me anyway. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Alden?
Yeah, I don't see this as more legislation. I just see this as guidelines. I believe we're one of the few towns that did not have an ordinance. That's why we put together a committee for the town meeting. And I think it makes it easier for the health officer to see what issues most tenants or landlords have within the town. And I think it establishes some standards. I don't understand why it's seen as costly to the taxpayers, since there's no cost associated with this. However, I see it as a source of income, if anything, because penalties will be assessed if people are not found in compliance.
I think there's a misconception there because I really do believe Mr. Trousdale is correct on that it is going to be eventually somewhat, who knows what it is at this time, a cost to the taxpayers, because the health officer right now works 32 hours a week and is almost full-time, going full steam ahead in that 32 hours. And if you're now adding on inspections, along with businesses and everything else, it's going to add to that load.
So you're talking another 8 hours a day for a wage?
We don't, nobody is, I don't know that. So, and I think that's where Mr. Trousdale is going, that you don't know that how much it will. It may add less once you get a feel for what you know of the landlords and, the inspections, and the house and so on and so forth. But the houses right now that we're going to take up quite a lot of time, and they're on a call-by-call basis by fire or welfare, or some are complained by a tenant, and those are the ones that we spend a great deal of time on. That would somewhat eliminate some of it. I think it's going to be a balance, but nobody knows at the end how much of that is going to be spent. And so we can't say, no, it's not going to be a cost to the taxpayer. You can't say that.
But there are going to be fees now, which at the present time we're not being able to collect, right? I mean,
Well,
fines.
The fee is when the
the
landlord
fines, I'm sorry.
registers. That's going to be the fee, but you're not going to get it. For the inspection, there's not going to be a fee.
Right. But fines will be assessed if you're not in compliance.
Potentially, that's
Yeah.
sort of,
Potentially, correct. And how much they are is not determined at this point.
And well, yeah, right, and the fines are basically those amounts and the source of those fines exist within the existing regulatory health, building, fire safety codes. So the ordinance itself doesn't sort of say, okay, a loose, broken door, or I don't know, some deficiency is going to be $150.
But it does say, should they have to
Right.
make an additional inspection, then a fee of $50 will be charged.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
There is that one. Yes.
They have to go up 3 times.
Yeah.
Right. There
Right,
is
the
that
third
one.
time.
Yes.
Which
Thank
is
you.
the kind of thing Pat was talking about.
Exactly.
And they
Exactly.
can collect fines now based on the codes
Based on code
already.
change.
And the registration fee, if you look at that, it's only when a new owner takes possession of a rental property in the town after this has been passed. And I don't know, I mean, if you
Or
look
if
on,
they haven't registered.
right, and if you look on like Realtor or whatever, there's really not that many multifamily places that change hands that often here anyway, so I would look at like the registration fees as a source of income, as the 6 or 7 that you may get in a year.
I was talking about the fines.
Yeah, oh,
And
fines.
the additional trips out.
I just want to say too that, coming into this, I wanted to make sure too that it was clear. It wasn't just for landlords to follow, but it was also a guideline for the tenants to follow too, so that it actually helps the landlords. So then the tenants actually have something simpler to read, so they're not reading all these things from the state, this and that. Our landlords can actually provide it to the tenant and say, here, this is what we need to keep to. So this is what I'm gonna look for, this is what the town's gonna be looking for. And I think it would be beneficial to the landlord to have this, to give to the tenant, so the tenant knows also what is expected of them.
Point, I agree, but on the other hand, if the landlord knows that the tenant is moving into a habitable place, then the rental agreement or lease could say, keep it so. There's no, you can draft a rental agreement or a lease to include any number of things that you want the condition of the property to be maintained. I'm not sure, again, I'm getting a little bit phobic of legislation, and I'm not sure that my experience of some people that rent places, they no matter what you say or do or present to them, they're going to live the way they live anyway. And,
Sure. That's actually, that raises a question for me, that I have for everybody. Would doing this help the landlord enforce things that are maybe also reiterated in your lease? With this, having this also, would that help enforce those things? So it really wouldn't help. So
no,
as
I
long as it's
don't think so. I think if the landlords are pretty much hamstrung by what you can and can't do at the state legislative
the
level.
state, yeah.
But the question it raises for me as a
Someone-
landlord is that you come in and they've left, say, the garbage is where it should, they're supposed to pick it up, they don't, it's in the hallways, it's a mess, and they continue to do that. The landlord needs time to process go through the eviction process, because they can't be responsible for things the tenants do. I mean, they are ultimately responsible, but they have to be able to give it the time to correct that, which would mean evicting the tenant if they don't follow the rules. So they can't be like, I'm gonna come back in 2 weeks, and if it's not taken care of, it's like, you can't control some of the tenant's actions. The only thing you can do is go through legal courses, which takes, I think, on, like, say, garbage, that's a 30-day notice unless it's a health hazard to the extreme, and then I think you can do a 7-day. So it'd have to be a serious health hazard to get a 7-day, otherwise you're in a 30-day, you're looking at 30 days, and then you gotta go to court and get a date. It could take up to 2 months to get them out. So that's a,
And it says in the fees and fines, 30 days or other reasonable period of time, where I would think that hopefully an eviction situation would fall under the other reasonable time where you can prove, look, I'm trying to evict them, just like we talked about with, you know, if you say, oh, you've got to replace all your windows in your whole place or something, you know, obviously that's going to take a little more time than 30 days. And as long as you're providing that you are in process of doing it. That's what
Do any other folks from the public wish to comment? Okay, suppose, if not, if the board agrees, stop me if I'm going too fast, I would put forth a motion to adjourn the public hearing portion of our meeting.
I'll
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we'll move on to, and thank you, everyone. We're going to continue our meeting now. Next order of business would be to review the September 6, 2016 minutes.
We might want to mention to the public while they're here that there is a second public hearing.
Okay, I did read that in the beginning, but I will mention, thank you. There will be a second public hearing, so the board is going to, we're going to take these comments received tonight and work on them, and then, you know, regardless of whether we have significant changes, we will definitely have at least a second public hearing. So please keep an eye out for that. We'll notice it similarly on our website and through posting agendas. And of course, whatever, if we do revise the ordinance, we'll make sure that that's available. Thank you. So let's go on to the minutes, I guess. Review September 6, 2016 minutes. If anyone is ready at any point, I'll accept a motion regarding. Certainly. Sure. Whenever folks are ready, yeah. Or you could make a motion and folks can chime in when they're ready.
Look at the professional teacher, you know, everyone's looking at. You're done. Okay, make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for September 6th.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? All right, very well.
Abstain.
Okay. Okay. We're on to basically other business. I believe Mr. Javert has a very busy next couple of weeks coming up, and he's going to head out. Thank you very much for coming. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's that? So now we're on to the other business portion of our meeting. I guess I'll open it up to the board to determine how we want to go. We did get some important comments tonight. We could continue meeting to discuss those. Another option, we could adjourn at this point and convene again at our regularly scheduled meeting in November. Discuss the changes, make any potential changes to the ordinance, and I guess then set our second public hearing. It's really up to, There's a vice presidential debate tonight. Obviously, I think it's important that folks who want to see that get to that if possible. But other than that, I think we have plenty of time. But we could also meet next time. Any thoughts?
What is our time schedule for would we have to have this done with our?
February 1st. So reasonably, I was thinking that if we met again in November, made that just a meeting, not a hearing, we could basically prepare for our next hearing. We could potentially have our next hearing, our regularly scheduled meeting in December, and we'd still be well ahead of schedule. That would give us time for everyone to, process these comments, whereas if
Did you say
okay.
that they had the hearing in December?
I was thinking that in our first,
Be the first
Very
week,
early
so
in
it's
the
not, yeah,
yeah,
it's not terrible. Well, and then you have January to process the comments, and then
Right.
then you'd be good.
right, okay.
Mr. Charles, you mentioned a word that I thought of, it's said responsibility, brought responsibility to town. With responsibility comes liability. I made a note here to bring it up at the next meeting, but just in case I'm not, maybe someone else can bring it up, but liability.
Okay.
If the town has done an inspection and then something goes wrong, worst case scenario, a fire or something, a wrongful death, and the town has inspected that and deemed that a passable living, what's the legal liability there that you maybe want to look into?
Good question, yeah.
So,
Alright.
I made a quick note here to bring it up next meeting, but in case
Okay.
I don't make the.
All right.
Does Al have any checklists? Does he, I don't know, does he ever, does he go out with Catherine? Does he, I know Catherine has his checklist.
Did Catherine give a checklist out?
She did last week. She
Okay.
gave her, I have it, this checklist, which I would probably provide at the next, any checklist we may have.
Okay.
I don't think we, like you said, I don't think we need to do them. I think we should go off of what they have.
Okay.
And, because this is exactly what they're looking at, so everybody knows this is what we're looking for. And then so there was Al, and then Catherine's, and then the fire department's they've pretty much, I think, hit every building in town now, because they've been around doing their inspections, so most people already know what they need to do or have done, or as far as the fire department goes, I guess it would be, they don't, we'd have to ask Tim next time if he had some minimum standard checklist that could also be.
We had it
He had it.
on his a laptop or something.
Right.
And then he also gave us something
I'll
at some
look
point,
through
but
my
it's
stuff.
not.
It's not
cut and dry,
great,
black
like
and white.
a nice little boxes, and, I mean, there's a lot on this for Catherine's, there's a lot here.
So what you're saying is, let's make sure we have all the checklists at our disposal for next meeting?
Right.
Okay, I can work on that.
Yeah, you have one. I have one from Catherine from
I
last.
remember Tim said he was trying to work on it, his was a software that you add in
Right.
stuff, and he was trying to print it out
Yeah,
without someone's information.
Right. okay.
That way.
Gary, can you make sure that we all get the Catherine?
Oh, yeah. She was like a 4-pager, and page 3 and page 4 were mixed up.
No, I only get one.
I got 2 pages.
Yeah, it's just 2 pages.
Page 3 was
That's
blank.
Tim.
I got
But-
2 copies of Tim's instead
it's
of a
just-
copy of Tim's.
No, there's like it's worthless. It's a blank page and another page with like lines on it, so.
So she can write,
Same,
yeah,
right.
but this is right
Yeah.
the important, accidentally got. And then, right, and this can change as regulations change, which is what we were kind of looking at.
Mm.
But I think, I mean, if you don't get this to pass, I would still hand out these checklists for each register. You know what I mean, they're standard, so
Yeah.
just for
Well,
information.
Yeah, and I guess my thought earlier today, maybe it was in a conversation with Jenny, I can't remember. We said that potentially we were thinking that the checklist wouldn't be up for adoption. It wouldn't be up for approval. It would simply be this sort of, you know, guidance document that the board is sort of almost giving as a gift to say, you know, here's kind of,
Education.
yeah,
Well, it's
right.
informational, so you
It's not-
know, like,
Right.
what you're
Right.
supposed to be doing. I mean, we all know the minimums, well, we know the minimum standards if you've read the RSA, but we don't know that, I mean, there's some stuff on here, risers are 7 inches, maximum 4 inches, and, I mean, there's some other stuff on here that are not in the minimum standards that you would,
It was with me, and I was saying, I was viewing a checklist just like a worksheet for landlords and tenants to just, and it simplifies it, and it's easier to read instead of, you know, trying
We did
to
talk
read.
about,
and-
we did talk about the checklist,
Yeah.
making the checklist and saying that it would be, normal, and that.
right, that's not, it's not part of the ordinance, but it's
But it's
information.
mentioned, it would be mentioned in there, but I think just
That
having
there's checklists
that there's
available.
checklists available if people want them,
Right.
would be good enough, and then people can ask, you know, downstairs, where do I find the checklist? Oh, here, we have them right here.
We're gonna make them on the website.
Put them on the website, just so
Alright.
they're available, it's like having the rules of the game before you start playing, you know?
Okay.
Right,
Plan it
it
out,
would
like,
only
put
make
out,
it
like,
easier
rules.
But not attach it to.
Right.
for when
Yeah.
Catherine came through. If people had this ahead of time, they could be like, okay, I need to do this,
Right.
this, and this. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a lot of stuff corrected before they even come if you know about it.
Right, I
Right.
remember
And I
It's
think
not
that's really
now.
key because there's a lot of people that don't know.
we talked
Right.
about that
That's
with the
that's
section
cool.
8, with the section 8 checklist and the HUD checklist that they
Right.
give us before they come out to do a section 8 approval. Then we have that checklist and we go through it and look for problems. So,
I mean,
as long as you know where it is, or you know that it's available, then you can find it.
right.
Are these are checklists then that we should talk about, for next time?
I'll compile and make sure, because I think some of them were handed out, you know, months ago. I'll make sure we all get them fresh. And then, yeah, I mean, to me, next meeting is gonna be, if it works for you guys, the agenda will generally be, you know, talk about what we learned tonight, the comments we were able to receive tonight, and to talk about the checklist, and, you know, it's, hammer out exactly what we wanted to provide.
Can you go ahead and set the date for the next meeting, is it the first Tuesday of the month?
Yeah.
So it would be November 1st then?
Yeah, I guess so. We don't have the first Tuesday after the first Monday rule like the election, do we?
I don't think so.
It's just
I
the
don't
first
know.
Tuesday.
It's just the first Tuesday.
That's
So there's
that
a-
election.
Have it.
Elections are on the first Tuesday after the first Monday
Yeah.
always.
So the following,
So the election's on the
Election is
8th.
the
It's one of the rare times that the election is not on the first
So it would
Tuesday
be-
of the month.
it would be best to do it on the first because then we're not trying to meet.
Right. Yeah.
So our next meeting would be here at, is it 7 o'clock?
Sure,
7 o'clock?
On the
Okay.
first.
November 1st.
And with that, I, move
Sure.
to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? All right.
So will you put those checklists in?
Yes, yep. All right, thank you everyone for attending.
No, actually, because Robert was.
Well,
What did you do? I'll just wait for the videos off too.